the AI agent will automate these super complicated, expensive styling methods on you immediately, and then match you with a select feed of clothes just for you. We've come up with a thesis around personalization, which is it has to be novel, it has to be meaningful, and it has to be actionable.
That's Ria Chakrabarti from Veristyle. I'm Sean McCarthy, and this is the Lucky Orange Show. Now, before we get into the conversation with Ria all about fashion technology, personalization, and the future of online shopping, I want to share a quick update about something that we are working on here as a product team, which is Lucky Orange Discovery. Now, if you follow us on social media, if you get our email newsletters, you've probably heard about this in recent weeks. We've been talking a lot about it. Lucky Orange Discovery is an interface that we're going to be releasing inside Lucky Orange soon, where you can ask questions all about your website visitors. And if you want to learn more about this and sign up for updates, sign up to potentially be a beta tester if you are a Lucky Orange user, go over to luckyorange.com/discovery-beta. You can fill out the form and get on the list, get some updates as we build. Now, in the coming weeks, I'll have an episode of this show with a few of my teammates here at Lucky Orange talking all about how we're building it, what we're building it, what's it even going to look like inside Lucky Orange. If you're one of the very few beta testers that have tested it already, we'd love to get even more feedback from you to hear about your experience using the tool. Ria Chakrabarti is the CEO and founder of Veristyle, which is an AI-centric app that helps you discover the clothes you were born to wear. And you simply upload a few pictures of yourself, and it helps you understand the colors, fits, sizes, shapes of clothing that looks best on you. And it provides a lot of education along the way so you can better understand exactly the clothes that you are supposed to be wearing. In this conversation, Ria shared some key roadmap decisions that they've made along the way based in data and all centered around this core thesis of why they even exist, which she'll share here in a few minutes. We talked about the future of personalization, why it's so powerful to lead with empathy in these sorts of business decisions. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode of the Lucky Orange Show. Let's get into it with Ria. All right, Ria, I have to start with a quick story. Veristyle is really, really interesting to me because when I was a kid growing up, my mom would take me shopping for clothes, and I'm not going to call out a specific store, but there's a store called Kohl's. One, I hate the name Kohl's. If anybody from Kohl's is listening, I'm sorry, I just don't like the name. She would take me to stores like that, and I, as a young boy, was just like, I hate this so much. I hate trying on clothes. I hate shopping for stuff, and ultimately I found whatever stupid cargo pants and stuff I would find. But it's really interesting to me that we're talking about Veristyle and this company that you're building as this future-looking thing that's having a lot of success, and it helps people find the clothes that they were meant to wear without having to go through what can sometimes be, in my opinion, a tough experience going to a store. So anyway, that's my little anecdote to say I'm excited. I know that this might be, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this might be more, at least initially designed for women, but as a man, I would love something like this as well. So welcome to Lucky Orange Show. I'm excited to chat with you today. And I'm curious if you could kind of just give us a little bit of starting point for where you saw an opportunity, a problem to solve with Veristyle, and kind of what made you say this needs to exist.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I think one of the best things about building Veristyle is that every day you kind of can get a story from someone where they, it ends by them telling you, oh, this needs to exist. And yeah, it's actually kind of funny that you brought up the men woman thing. So, for Veristyle, our technology actually works for both men and women. When we were initially doing like product design, testing with users and stuff, we kind of immediately figured out that the men and women wanted totally different things out of the experience. So men just wanted to get 5 outfits right away. And if they liked it, they would be loyal. And then the women wanted this much deeper experience and relationship with the agent where they wanted to understand why something would look better on them, why it looks better on their bone structure, stuff like that. So it was really, really interesting. And that sort of experience of, building and getting out to users first, and then actually figuring out what we wanted to make. But at the end of the day, the styling methods that are powered by Veristyle completely changed my life. I became obsessed with them when I was in college. I went to a little bit like of a fancy elite university in the UK, so it was a little bit intimidating for me as like, a normal American suburban girl. I
Sure.
felt completely out of my depth, adapting to the how much fashion meant over there living in Europe. Um, and I just really fell in love with these styling methods. It made me feel empowered for the first time. It was all about your body, your bone structure, your features. It was really mathematic, which spoke to me a lot. Um, and it had nothing to do with how much you weigh, which has a really big impact on people's, confidence. Um, so yeah, that's just kind of how Veristyle was born. I was obsessed with these styling methods. And then, after college, I was still publishing research in AI and computer vision. So I just thought I could try smashing them together and seeing what came out.
That's so cool. Before we get too far down the road here, can you just do a quick overview of how it works?
Yeah, totally. So the way it works is you upload a picture of your body, a picture of your face. You give us your height, and that's it. The AI agent will automate these super complicated, expensive styling methods on you immediately, and then match you with a select feed of clothes just for you, your body type, your colors, and also currently today on the app, you can get these cards that tell you all about your body type, exactly why certain fabrics look better than others. But in our B2B tool, you'll actually be able to, on every individual item, see exactly why that was picked as a match for you and your body. So we found that feature to be really powerful.
Yeah, that's amazing. The more I think about this promise of this new technology that's been floating or that's been more prominent in the conversation for a few years, let's call it, because it has been around for a while. It's just not been actioned on as frequently. I think that the coolest and most exciting outcomes are in things like real personalization for shopping experiences and making things more enjoyable. I mean, really the e-commerce experience for most people today on the web on a website based shopping experience is the same thing that's been for 30 years or however
Mm-hmm.
long. And we're still following a lot of the same principles that came up 30 years ago. And so I don't think that anybody would feel like, oh, this is the perfect way to shop for something. It's just the way it is. And what you're talking about is this interesting confluence of like humans and technology and personalization and real experience, and not just like making numbers more easy to access or making graphs easier to build. It's a real human thing. And I'm curious, when you think about the idea of personalization and personalizing this experience, you're building this with a lot of empathy for the user and a lot of empathy for the like this experience. So what does good personalization look like to you? How do you guys think about that when you're building um, the capabilities of Veristyle? How does personalization fit into this?
Yeah, for us, I mean, it's the cornerstone of why we even went out B2C first. We've always wanted to build a B2B agent, but we wanted to make sure that we actually had the best models and the best possible user experience out there. And through doing that, we've come up with a thesis around personalization, which is it has to be novel, it has to be meaningful, and it has to be actionable. So we're actually getting new insights on the user. We're not just looking at past data, past traits where, you can look at a post on social media or you can go for a walk outside and then your mind will change. You'll want to explore something else. So we're really leaning into that with our audience where whatever your taste, whatever your style, that's up to you to explore, but we're there to help you, guide you along the way, help you and create a more empowering experience around it. It has to be meaningful, which means that we have to be able to back up why we're even making a recommendation. And it has to be actionable, where the user can actually buy something, try it right away. And there's not too much of a latency in them, getting a personalized experience, but not being able to, take action to that, which ultimately leads to higher conversions and lower returns for our retail partners.
The meaningful portion of that kind of really hits home, because I think that there's been this gold rush almost for AI tools and LLM tools and stuff that's maybe feigning personalization. But at the end of the day, I think the modern consumer, even somebody who's not in tech, real can see through this stuff. They can see through, like, if I try and use this thing more than 3 times, I'm getting the same response, and it's just generic and it's not truly personalized. That makes me think about your users and their experience. We're tapping into this again, this thing that's this combination of human experience and personalization and technology. What does the customer feedback loop look like? How do you incorporate what people are saying about this experience? Because it is chasing this like super personalized thing. How do you loop in customer feedback, and how do you balance that with more of the data that you're seeing of actual app usage and engagement on that front?
Yeah, and we've had to adapt things so much. I mean, there's normal things like being a small company and having lots of bugs and accounts and growing really fast and stuff like that. And then there's some more meaningful stuff. Like, we've been really surprised by some of the feedback that we got. I think I spoke about in the beginning when we were, just working on the product design and interviewing hundreds of people, and realized that, like, we couldn't build a great app for men and a great app for women at the same time. We had to focus on, like, what exactly we wanted to solve. Um, we also started off building something that was a lot more hyper visual. And
Mm.
then we kept getting back from our most engaged users or our early adopters that they wanted to read more. They could read and read and read until the end of time. It doesn't matter how much text you give them, because it's about something that's so important to them. So at least to give them the option to engage further, and then they did. So I think kind of leaning into those engagement points were really important to us from like an end user perspective. And then for brands, we've learned a lot on the brand side about how they want to be represented. And, ultimately, like, every brand wants to increase conversions and reduce returns, but also they each have their own sort of specific problems. So a couple of the brands are working with, they want to really focus on increasing their full price sell through, and how the emotional reaction you get from Veristyle can, improve those conversions. Then another brand wants to focus more on just increasing their time on their site. They want to create a more engaging experience, and how can Veristyle help with that? So it's a it's a really interesting dynamic. I think for us, like I said, going B2C first was really a blessing, because we, ultimately it's the end user that matters. We kind of see ourselves as like a B2B2C product. You can either be on our app or we can be on your site. And yeah, we've learned a lot from, really focusing in on Gen Z as well. Like, I think I hinted at it before, but they spend more than, I think, 60% of their disposable income on clothes. It's like the number one most important thing to them. And that's not because they want to throw money away at like something with a depreciating value. It's because it's really, really important to them and their identity, which is being, shaped in this loop between socials and then Shopify e-commerce sites, and then now ChatGPT giving them recommendations for the weather or a wedding or, a time and a place. And so we wanted to kind of lean into them being able to explore all sorts of different platforms or styles or identities, while being able to make sure that we can help them find the clothes that will really make them shine.
It's almost like you're building sort of an always on partner for people. And that might be where
Exactly.
the reading comes in, is to say, I want to learn about this so that when I am shopping somewhere that I can't use a powered by Veristyle feature, I understand what I'm doing. When I'm going through a thrift store and I'm, going through the aisles, I know what will look better on me.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's a great pulse of data, both quantitative and qualitative across the board. When you're looking at your roadmap and taking into account all these inputs. I think a lot of where a lot of people struggle is that next step where it all meshes together to build a narrative, to find patterns. When you're thinking about your roadmap, and maybe the roadmap right now is really just leaning into the B2B side, but when you're thinking about features and growth levers, how do you go from just this mountain of data to something that's actionable and meaningful for you and the team?
Yeah, I mean, like we track the user activity a lot, both with what they're engaging in and then with what they're interested in shopping for. Like we currently have 54 brands on the app, and that's a
Hmm.
mix of luxury brands and a mix of fast fashion brands and, smaller designers and stuff like that. Um, what we found is that I think the user profile of who's coming to us really like to explore. And like I said, we kind of have this hardline thesis of we don't want to tell the consumer, this is your style in a box and this is how you should express yourself to the world. We actually want to leave that up to them. But we are finding that tracking like their price stickiness is really helpful and recommending them for their brands, as well as like the brands that they're most loyal to versus what are brands that we're analyzing that people aren't as loyal to.
Hmm.
They just
Hmm.
happen to be in a certain price point or follow different trends and stuff like that. So I think for us, it's like being really intentional about what we're tracking or not. I think also having that thesis has really kept us in line. I think when a lot of people think about an AI styling agent, they think about like the old school ways of, saying that this person is boho chic and this person is preppy. But in reality, like these micro trends and stuff are happening all the time. That's not really how Gen Z is choosing to express themselves anymore. It's a lot more fluid. Um, and I think leaning into that has, prevented us from making a lot of mistakes.
I'm curious what the relationship looks like from a data standpoint between you and the brands that you're working with. I mean, I imagine a lot of these are powerhouse brands that have their own analyst teams, that have their own KPIs and all of that. How do you mesh that together, the sort of the goal outcome of somebody using Veristyle against and with the goals that these brands have when they come to the table with you?
Yeah, I mean, and you'll know this really well. Like every brand, they want to increase their conversions and reduce their returns. And then for Veristyle, a Veristyle user just wants to have, we call it more purchase confidence.
Mm.
When you use like Klaviyo or when you use Klarna, you have a little bit more purchasing power, right? Because you can spread out the payments. When you use a size and fit predictor, which is what we feel is our biggest corollary, it'll tell you what you can actually like fit on your body. So you have a little bit more confidence. You don't have to buy three different sizes and return two of them. And then for Veristyle, we are giving you the confidence that a specific item is actually going to make you shine and telling you why. Um, so most of the time, the brand goals and the customer goals are actually really aligning really well, like 95% of the time. But there are certain examples, like I told you, with a brand that wants to increase their full price sell through. The customer wants to spend less money, or they maybe want to find another site where they can buy it cheaper, or especially if they're Gen Z, they want to go look for it secondhand. I think what we're really leaning into is, improving the experience for the brand on their site or the brand on our app. And then, for the 50 brand partners we have on the app, some of them are, happy with anything. They just send us their products and then they are totally hands off. Some of them really want to make sure that it aligns with their brand direction and stuff, which it normally does. Um, so yeah, that's really the kind of focus areas that we have. But especially for B2B, we do have to kind of lean into the fact that the brands are our customer, the end customers. We're really just enhancing their experience wherever we can.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it also seems like you keep going back to this anchor point of your mission. You used a different word, but of the vision that you have, and the reason why you exist. And I think that is a great thing to kind of keep at the center, because you have a lot of these, again, powerhouse brands coming around saying, we do it this way, this is the right way to do it, sticking to what makes sense for your team and for the users on your end, and saying, this is how people are wanting to shop in this experience. We know better than anybody else. Seems like it would be kind of a great, again, anchor point for those conversations. When you think about data, again, I imagine sometimes it's not exactly what you think it will be. I imagine that performance inside the app isn't, people behavior maybe would be the best thing, is that people don't behave how you think they'll behave, or something surprises you. Is there anything, any examples you could give? And this is kind of a generic interview question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Has there ever been any time where you or the team have been really surprised by something that's come up in the data, or something that's gone against maybe your instincts as the person and as the team building this?
Yeah, I mean, a number of things. The very first one was, we kind of learned that there's a huge opportunity to cater to men. All of these shopping apps, all of these brands and platforms are really built in a way that caters to Gen Z and millennial women.
Hmm.
So we kind of have that in the back of our mind. And actually, one of our first B2B partners is a shopping app geared specifically towards men. So that's been really interesting, like leaning into what we've learned there. Um, and then the second thing that I talked a little bit about before, but it was really, really surprising when users came back and told us that they wanted more writing, that they were happy to read more. They didn't need like a fancy virtual try on thing. They would actually prefer reading more text because, they could trust it and stuff like that. Whereas most of the virtual try on experiences today, they aren't they're not like 100%. There's a few that are really, really good, but a lot of, when you, and then it made us think like, okay, when I'm trying something on in a store, it's because I already like that item. I just want to see if it fits, and then, I'll probably buy it. When you're using virtual try on for marketing, it looks cool and it's kind of fatty in a way, but we found that the users respond way better to just giving them reasoning as to why certain items look good on them. And, that's also very obvious with people using ChatGPT now to do a lot of their shopping.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Is that writing, and the content you're serving? I imagine that is driven, LLM driven, um,
Yeah.
in the spirit of personalization. Could you, whatever you're willing to talk about, just talk a little bit about how that works, and maybe a little bit of the nuts and bolts behind how you're building that?
Yeah, sure. And then there's a super cool extension to that I'll bring up. But yeah, most of our models, when they're proprietary. I started building Veristyle in 2021. So this was, back in a time where most people's models had to be proprietary. Um, and yeah, and we still have better performance than pretty much any LLM or open source model on this. And we've been able to get so far ahead by getting so many real life users and stuff. But yeah, the models that are, telling people what their body types are, telling people their color analysis and stuff, those are proprietary. Models that are, we built our own small language models to ingest product feeds because we just found that there was nothing that could, do it good enough in order to extract the data that was necessary from products to match them the best with people. So that's proprietary. What we started using LLMs for is that specific write up. So we tell the LLM, this is the user's body type. Verystyle's calculated that. this is the item and the features about it that work. Can you give us a nice little road? And yeah, that's really what it does. So that's where LLMs have really been able to like take us to the next level of, this is something our users were begging for a long time. And now with our B2B product, we'll be able to offer it.
That is super exciting. The entire space remains exciting. I mean, I thought, frankly, if I flashed back 24 months, I thought by now I'd be tired of thinking about it and talking about it. But uh, it's just, there's so much potential still in so many areas of life. And I think winning in interface, like we're talking about with shopping, there's all sorts of things in our space, Lucky Orange's space, the website optimization vertical, like there's so much opportunity still to win there. Um, I imagine there are a number of things that get you excited. It sounds like, you're very passionate about Veristyle, and I love that. What, looking ahead, maybe towards the rest of the year, what has you most excited about where these ideas of behavior modeling, personalization are heading?
So for us, not just the rest of the year, but over, I think in 3 or 5 years' time, we're our another thesis of ours for Veristyle is that we want to be embedded wherever people are making, selling, and buying clothes. So, we started with a B2C app, we started with a user experience. Now we're moving B2B, which will still be, B2B2C, like customer interfacing. The next step, or one step down, pretty far down the line, is to integrate Veristyle with other agents down the supply chain. So, for example, there's so many interesting things going on in the on-demand design supply chain. A few of those really cool startups out of New York and London. I know a couple of them personally. And yeah, I think that if you can combine that with someone's perfect Veristyle profile, the possibilities in on-demand design are endless. And this is a place where we can provide a lot of value. So, if I want to make Ria's perfect wedding lehenga or something like that, a lot of these models are able to spit out like 10 designs if I can connect it with the Veristyle data, that are perfect for me with the right cuts, colors, patterns. So yeah, that's something that we are super, super excited about. And I don't know if that's something that'll happen this year or if that's something that'll happen in 5 years, but we think that that's a place where there's a huge amount of value to be unlocked. And yeah, that I think, supply chains are getting more and more efficient. And that's really where we want to be all over that.
I mean, the idea of a shirt or a suit, maybe even
Mm-hmm.
something that requires tailoring, the idea of that being made specifically for somebody, one to one, it's going to fit, it's going to look good on you, and it's getting made just for you. That's really, really fascinating. And, there's also some environmental impact stuff here about all the returns you're talking about. I mean, I do that. I hate to admit it, but I will order more than one size of something to return one, maybe both. But you're right. There's some very, very large implications here and some very large ideas. And I wish you guys a lot of luck in chasing these next steps because it seems like a huge thing. Um, where can people learn more about Veristyle? Give it a try. Where can people learn more about what you're up to and connect with you guys?
Yeah, so veristyle.com, veristyle.com, that is where everyone can go. The first button you'll see there is to download the app. Um, then we have a demo and a form for potential partners on our site. So if you go down to veristyle.com/partnerships, you can, pass us your email and we can maybe schedule a time to demo our B2B product to you. And then otherwise, you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. And also our team, more often, our team is available on Instagram. We're really,
Cool.
really active on there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with me. I'm glad we can make this happen. This is such a cool space, and I can't wait to see what you guys do in the next 3 to 5 years and beyond, because Veristyle will be huge by then. So again, thank you so much. I really enjoyed chatting with you today.
Yeah, it was great to talk to you too, Sean. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Lucky Orange Show. Before we go, if you haven't tried Lucky Orange yet, head over to www.luckyorange.com for a free 7-day trial of our leading conversion rate optimization toolkit. What's in that toolkit? Well, let's start with session recordings and heat maps. With session recordings, you can watch a full playback of an entire visitor journey on your website. Everywhere they click, scroll, move, everything they do on your site, a full playback. So you can see what's getting in the way of conversions and what is getting people over that finish line to convert. With dynamic heat maps, you can see the average visitor behavior on a page. So you can see clicks, moves, and scrolls. You can see how far down the page the average visitor is scrolling. And if something is below that line, that means that more than 50% of visitors are not seeing that. Lucky Orange also offers tools like live chat, announcements, and surveys so that you can communicate with your website visitors in real time. So again, if you have not tried Lucky Orange, or if you're not a user yet, head over to luckyorange.com, check it out, 7-day free trial with no credit card required. If you're a Shopify store owner, head over to the Shopify App Store to download the Lucky Orange app to your store today, as well as BigCommerce, HubSpot, Square, and many more. Check us out, and happy optimizing.